5, 4, 3.
Welcome to Career Central. I'm Lorraine Beeman, your host of an hour totally committed to helping you achieve your career goals by providing strategies you can implement immediately. I am so excited that our guest today is Richelle Lecourt. As a career transition specialist, I often get a call that starts with I hate my job, I've got to get out of here, help me find a new job. And that's what I do. I help people find new jobs. But my first question is, well, tell me about why you want to make this transition. Are you an accountant and you never want to see another spreadsheet? Well, then yes, let's just talk about a career transition. But if you start talking about you're in a toxic environment, you can't get along with your boss, then we want to take a moment and we want to think, gee, is it something that you have control over, or are you in a toxic environment and you should get out as soon as possible? And that's why we have invited Rochelle to come this morning and talk to us, because that's what she helps people do: decide if they need a new job or if they need to change the way they are approaching their current job. So let's welcome Rochelle. So Rochelle, welcome to Career Central.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you.
Well, we are so excited to have you. And one of the things we always ask our guests to do is to talk about their career path, because we find people who become experts typically have something in their own career experience that made them go, wow, this is an issue that is really important and I really want to focus on it. And not only that, but I want to help other people deal with it. So go for it. Tell us how you got to where you are.
Oh my gosh, thank you for this wonderful question. I actually started my first job working when I was 11 years old. I was bussing tables on the weekend, trying to, make a few extra bucks. And I just really felt like waitressing was not going to be for me, but it was something that I needed to do in the time that I was doing it. I then found myself helping out at summer day camps at our local church, and I loved it. I was the activities and events coordinator, so it fit very well with who I am. Then I found myself doing an internship at a spa. I was in high school, and for this internship, we had to get so many work experience hours, and I just loved seeing people come in stressed and frazzled and out of their minds and leaving completely zened out. I thought to myself, how can I help people do that? So then I got curious and I decided I wanted to be a massage therapist. So I went to school to become a massage therapist and a holistic practitioner. And I feel like I was about 10 years ahead of my time. I didn't get into massage therapy or working in a spa until about 7 or 8 years after holistic practitioning school, which was hard because I really enjoyed helping people to relax and to feel good in their own bodies. And that sort of started, this inward journey, this momentum. I worked for over 10 years for a corporate American company, which was a big transition from someone who wanted to be a holistic practitioner. I worked in the oil field. I've worked in construction, from road construction to power lines and power plants all over the place. I have worked in the oil sands in northern Alberta and Canada. And my last transition, my last job transition, took me all the way across Canada. So I was living in one of the western provinces in Alberta, in southern Alberta, and I had resigned from my job. I was not happy where I was, and I was like, nope, I don't want to do this anymore. I was into my coaching program that I was learning through Leila Martin, and I thought to myself, okay, this is a means to an end, so let's end it now. Well, they offered me an opportunity to come out to Ontario. And I kind of hemmed and hawed about it. I was like, I don't really know if that's what I want to do, but I came. I checked it out. I figured out what the issue was, because that was often what they asked me to do, is to figure out the issues at the branches and help them to resolve them, which is something I'm really good at, problem solving. I really like it. And after being at the office for about 2 days, I knew exactly what the issue was. And unfortunately, not everybody agreed with me, which happens. Not everybody's okay with your conclusion about situations or problems that are going on within an office environment. And so in January of 2019, I moved all the way across Canada to work at this job in Ontario, just north of Toronto, the city of Toronto. And things were okay for the first month. I got the got the hang of what they needed me to do in the office and what my role was, and everything was flowing. And then things started to get really interesting. The manager, for whatever reason, had, I don't know if it was a bone to pick with me or what, but he was extremely aggressive. And it got to the point where he was not only verbally and emotionally abusive towards me, he would actually throw things at me. And I remember thinking to myself as he stood there and he screamed at me and he threw all these papers all over my desk. I remember thinking to myself, this is not okay. This is not okay. And I knew from the history and the track record in this office that this was not the first time this was happening. I was not the first person this was happening to. And I went back to my original problem recognition that this was the problem. A manager, a person who was in a management role, who needed mentorship in order to be a successful manager. And I did my best. I did everything under the sun. I had all of the coping tools you can imagine. I would meditate, I worked out, I would run, I would spend time in nature, I would breathe, I would sit at my desk all day. And if he came in, I would just pause and breathe, pause and breathe, pause and breathe, because that was the only thing that could help me get through those interactions. And my health ended up suffering dramatically. I ended up hospitalized about 3 months after working with this person with cysts on my liver. I had an ulcer that had come back just from the stress that I was holding and not being able to digest what was going on. And then in October of 2019, I just had enough. I could not go to work without crying. I couldn't pick my clothes without worrying about, oh, am I going to be demeaned for what I'm wearing? Oh, am I going to receive inappropriate comments? Is he going to call me sweetheart or babe again? All of the inappropriate things. And I said to my now husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, I said, I just don't know what to do. And he said to me, you need to take a medical leave. You need to put your health first. You need to prioritize yourself, because you can't even get through a car drive to go to dinner with my parents. How are you going to get through everything else? You can't even pick what you're going to wear in the morning without having a meltdown. This is not normal. This is not okay. And so I phoned in sick and I never went back. I couldn't bring myself to go back to that place. And every time I thought about going back there, I thought to myself, no, because if I go back, it says that this behavior was okay. This behavior has been known about. The way that this person treats other staff and employees, particularly and unfortunately women in this staffing environment, was absolutely disgusting. And nobody, it didn't matter how high up the chain I took it, nobody did anything about it. And I was like, you know what, if you can't support someone who's been here for 10 years versus someone who's been here for less than a year and really desperately needs some mentorship, and that's what I was recommending, like get this person some mentorship and some support so they can be better in their role, then I can't return. And I haven't returned since. And that's sort of what launched me into really focusing on my coaching career and assisting people to develop self-mastery tools and develop their ability to be leaders, not just leaders in their lives, but leaders in their own thoughts and in their own projects. And if they want to be an entrepreneur, any of that kind of stuff.
I want to thank you for sharing your story. One of the things I really want to emphasize for those that are listening is there is a time when an environment is so toxic, you need to leave. And I think you hit all of it: the mental abuse, the physical abuse, the things flying through the office. And like you said, that is not normal. And so I was talking about having this conversation about, should you try and stay and fix it? As soon as it gets into the verbal, mental, all of those kinds of abuse, it's okay to say, and congratulations to you for the courage just to leave, because a lot of people stay for a long time and they just lose their self-esteem. I mean, it's just worn away. So, and I think, again, your career is just an example of what, we are dealing with. And one of the things I want to pick up is you talked about the leader who was so, abusive and created such a toxic environment. If you put yourself in that person's place, and what what keys would somebody who was a supervisor, what could they pick up? I mean, obviously, if you're throwing things and yelling at things, that is obviously your bad supervisor. But there's a lot of other subtle things you said about being criticized for what you wear, being called babe, things that maybe just are on that fringe. How would a supervisor right now, if they're on, listening, take that deep breath and go, okay, how can I evaluate myself? How am I creating a positive work environment? I mean, because you had, talked about, referring for mentoring and coaching. So you really kind of understand that people can change. But how do you know if you need to change?
How do you know if you need to change? I feel like you know if you need to change just by the way that people interact with you. It's not always about what you say, it's how you say it. A lot of the time, people can make derogatory remarks at another person and it'll just be water off of the duck's back. It doesn't make it appropriate, nor does it make it okay, but it's in the delivery. So even if a supervisor were, to come in and to make a comment about how an employee is dressed, before you even open your mouth, think before you speak. That is the number one. Think before you speak, just like think before you act.
Mm-hmm.
Think about, how is my comment going to be received? How am I going to deliver this message in an appropriate manner? And is this message, is this compliment welcomed by the other person? A lot of people have issues receiving compliments, let alone, being randomly given them by someone who is above them in the ranks in the employment world. But I mean, that would be my first go-to. Think before you speak, think before you act.
And I think that's exactly, if you're out there and you're a supervisor and you've heard this story and go, well, I don't want to be one of those folks that are creating a toxic environment, is think and then put yourself in the position of the employee. You should know your staff well enough to know, or just body language. Are they comfortable, not comfortable? Are they looking away from you? Communication is two ways. And, make sure that you're seeing the verbal and nonverbal. I know we got sidetracked, but your story was such a classic. And if there's people out there going, I want to be a good supervisor, which is great. I want them to have some tools, some strategies for deciding, how well they are doing. So let's move on though, because we really want to focus on those folks who are kind of struggling themselves. So when people are moving from job to job, only to find that they have the same issues every time, what advice would you give them to figure out why this is happening?
If people are moving from job to job and finding that they're encountering the same issues job to job, the first thing I would do is look at myself, because I would technically be the common denominator. Most people would most likely want to blame the other party and say, oh, it's their fault, it's their fault. I am a big believer in taking responsibility for my actions and my choices. My choices and my actions determine the outcome of what I'm doing next. So if I've actively pursued this job and I have chosen to accept this job, I recognize, this is what I may or may not be getting into, and I go into it from a place of curiosity. If you are noticing that you're constantly picking jobs where the management, is toxic, or the work environment is toxic, or you don't get along, maybe consider, maybe I need a little bit of self-development work. Maybe I need to take a moment for myself and think, okay, this hasn't been working for me. So what can I do better? What can I do differently? And sometimes you have to remember, it's not all you. Sometimes work environments are just, everyone is set in their ways. Everyone is set to stone, and that is just how it is. And other people don't like change. It's unfortunate because change is amazing and great things can happen, but not everybody likes change. Not everyone can appreciate a newcomer. They think, oh, someone new, I have to train them. Oh, someone new, I have to get to know. And a lot of people don't have a lot of space to get to know people, or they don't want to take on extra work, or they're comfortable in what they're doing. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that that's the way some people think, but yeah, that's sort of what I would suggest.
We're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to delve more into and ask Rochelle, how do you determine whether or not you're just continuing a pattern where you are attracted to jobs and you get in there and it's the same thing? Or, how can you change that job when you're in there? Some of those relationships with those folks who maybe aren't open to helping you and coaching you. So stay with us, come right back, and we will continue our conversation with Rochelle.
All right, you're clear.
Okay.
Give me just a couple minutes to save.
Yeah. Fine. So I'm thinking we will go into, again, you wind up in that situation and people aren't really friendly. What can you do before you call me and say, I need a new job? And then, yeah. And then I always want to talk a little bit about, if you're that employee that's welcoming a new person, how can you make it a welcoming environment? Because it is a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's up to the employee to make it a good situation for themselves. They're the only, they can only control themselves. But
yeah, and that's important to remember that.
Yeah. So we'll dig into that. It's a great conversation. I'm enjoying it.
Yay! I'm also enjoying this. You ask really great questions. Thank you.
Thank you. But it's easy to ask great questions when somebody is, so well versed on a topic. And again, I think so many people are unhappy in their jobs and just need to figure out, is it this job and I leave, or do I need to do some work on myself before I leave?
Mm-hmm.
Or can I do some work on myself and make this actually a pleasant job?
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed a lot of people experience radical shifts when they start doing that inner work. Everything changes, not just their personal life, but their job.
So.
All right, are you ready?
We are ready.
All right, gonna go ahead and count you in again, just like last time. Here we go. In 5, 4, 3.
Welcome back to Career Central and our conversation with Richelle Lecourt. We were talking about toxic work environments, and now I want to move into what we can do, both as the person, the employee that's arriving on the scene for the first time, and then if you are the established member of a team, what you can do to help create a positive work environment. So let us start with the individual. If we keep finding ourselves in bad situations, what can we do to see if it's really a bad situation or if it's something we can change in ourselves that'll make it a good situation?
Well, the first thing I recommend people do is observe what is going on, and not just observing the other person, observe yourself. How did you engage? How did you interact in that moment, in that conversation, in that interaction with this other person? What could you have done differently? What could you have done better? That is the first place that I would start. It's not always our fault or our problem. You mentioned that it is a two-way street, and I totally agree. It is a two-way street. Communication is a two-way street. Making sure that you are comfortable observing what the situation at hand actually looks like and viewing it from a place of objectivity rather than a place of emotion. For example, from a place of hurt or from anger or frustration. When you have any of those emotions clouding in on your judgment, you will not think of the situation objectively. You will only think of it from that place of hurt or from that place of anger, or from that place of frustration. So that is my first recommendation.
So let's walk that through little practical experience. You're upset with somebody, you're at your desk, you're just under your breath, maybe saying some discouraging things, maybe your heart is racing, maybe you're a little sweaty, and it's just like the fight or flight, and I'm just so mad and I'm so angry. And then we're saying, oh, take this time to reflect on what's going on. So walk us through how we get from that, I am ready to scream, to the, okay, I'm going to use this as a learning experience. So walk us through what you would advise somebody to do.
So I would start with, obviously, as soon as you feel yourself getting sucked into the vortex of anger or frustration or whatever is going on in your work environment, the second you notice that little vacuum has got a hold on you, pause and breathe. So one of my go-tos is either pausing and counting back from 10. Sometimes I would have to count back from 100, or taking 10 deep breaths You don't have to do this super audibly so everybody in the office hears how exasperated you are. You can literally make it quiet and just an internal practice for yourself, or you can excuse yourself. If you are so spitting mad that you feel like you are going to flip your desk, maybe take a little breather, go for a walk outside to your car if that's possible, excuse yourself to the bathroom, take a moment for yourself and just let yourself breathe and calm down. So once you have taken those 10 breaths, or if you've counted back from 10, or you've taken that little walk, that little moment away, you've broken away from the situation, then what you can do is you can make a little note and you can decide, do I have time and do I feel ready to process this? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then take the time to do that. Go inside and reflect. Okay, he said this, but this is what I heard, because often we misunderstand what people are saying to us. So this is what he actually said, and this is what I heard. So that's the first part, breaking down the communication. The second part to that is, once you have broken down the communication, you can then think to yourself, okay, how did I respond to that communication? How did I respond to what that person was saying to me? Okay, now I can break down that. What can I do better? What can I do differently? And how can I communicate to this person, hey, I didn't appreciate that comment that you made to me about my outfit today. Hey, I didn't appreciate the way that you raised your voice towards me when I was trying to ask you a question. Hey, I didn't appreciate how you vented your frustration and threw papers all over my desk. Coming from that place of construction, you're able to then go back to the situation, maybe not the same day, maybe the next day, and say to this person, hey, would you be willing to have a conversation with me? I don't really care for how things went yesterday. Can we talk about how we can improve our communication? How can we improve our relationship going forward? And that is what I would do.
I'm thinking that if this is a common problem that you're having, is maybe practicing with somebody, rather than saving it for the boss, is, make this just a part of, an exercise, a work-related exercise, a skill that you develop. Is that what you'd advise folks to do?
I think that that's a brilliant way to ask people to, participate and develop the awareness around the issues that are at hand without pointing the finger and casting blame on everybody. The other side, I meant to mention, if the answer is no,
yeah, let's walk through that.
and you don't want to address the situation at hand because you're still really upset after taking 100 deep breaths, you can put it on the shelf and say, I'm going to put this on the shelf for 24 hours and I'm going to come back to it when the jets have cooled and when I feel like I can approach this from a level perspective, not from a place of emotion. So that is the other side. And then I would go through those other steps.
Yeah. And that's great to remind us that even though, in fact, maybe being upset, we should take that breather. Maybe it's just a few minutes. Maybe it's a whole day, because if it's a really complex issue, we may need that time to really think about what was this person really saying, especially if it was a complex conversation. So great. Thank you for letting us have permission to put it off. But what I'm hearing you say is put it off for a specific amount of time. Don't just let it sit there and fester on the shelf. Yes. Because it does need to be taken care of.
Yes, it does.
So let's go from the other side. I'm working with somebody and I really think I'm communicating, but I can tell they're getting angry or their response is anger. How can I, adjust what I'm doing, or, what are the issues that I should be addressing?
My first question, if I noticed that someone was becoming upset or, having a meltdown about something, I would just gently ask, what's coming up for you right now? What are you experiencing? What is bringing up this emotion for you? And let them have the floor to say whatever it is that they need to say. It may not come out pretty, but at least it'll give them an opportunity to feel seen and to feel heard and to feel respected. And like you are able to recognize, wow, okay, something is going on here. I wouldn't recommend taking all of the blame upon yourself. I don't think that that's always fair, because it takes two to tango. I do believe that both parties have an influence in the way that a conversation unveils, but also there is an energetic component. I mean, you never know what's going on for someone. That person that you're having that conversation with, you don't know if their dog and their mom just died this morning and they haven't had the courage to tell you yet, or like, you never know what is going on with someone else. So I usually, whenever I recognize that someone is upset, or if I see someone having a moment of despair or whatever is going on, I usually ask them, hey, what's happening in your world? What's coming up for you right now? And what is it that you need? And just by asking that, people can take a moment and go, whoa, this person cares. This person wants to know what's going on for me. I've never experienced that before. And sometimes even that is a new experience for a fellow employee or for a human being. It's unfortunate that it's few and far between, but that is something that I love to do. When I see people are upset, even if I don't know them, and if I see them upset in the grocery store or on the side of the road, I'm like, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? Like, is there something that you need? Because a lot of people don't know how to ask for what they need because they can't even recognize that they have a need.
And I think in this last year that we have become even more aware, especially since we're trying to communicate by Zoom and all of that. And there's not all of those visual cues that we get when we're in the same room together. So very valuable information, that asking, it's okay to ask, and that person, where you want to know where they are so that you can communicate with them in a way that, because theoretically we're all in this together. We're all trying to meet our goals, not have a lot of internal conflict. So let's talk about the fact that, and you, great lead in, you may not know that person, is coming to work after the death of a member, or a fight with a husband, or, a financial crisis or something. So that stress moves over into the workplace. And so sometimes that's what we're thinking is, maybe it's not really the job that's causing the stress, but it's the outside life, going into the workplace that's bringing the stress. So let's talk about, how you identify that source of stress.
How do I identify that source of stress? Oh my gosh. Well, for myself, I recognize stress the moment that my body starts to have some sort of physical reaction, whether my shoulders creep up to my earlobes, or I curl in, or my fists are clenched, or I'm biting my lip, or I'm clenching my jaw. I recognize, whoa, okay, my body is responding to something. It is not happy about this stimuli. What is the stimuli that's causing my body to react in this way? So what I do then is I go, okay, well, what are we talking about? Say, for example, it's finances. Oh, well, I only have $7 in my bank account today, and I've got a $4,000 bill that's coming out at the end of the month, and I'm not sure where my next paycheck is coming from. That is considered a stressor. Financial stress is one of the number one, like, especially now in the times that we're in, it is the number one stressor that people have, because they aren't able to go out and get a job. If they do get a job, there's so many restrictions, which causes additional stress. The other side of that is health. How are you taking care of your health outside of your workplace? Are you going for a walk? Are you getting into nature? Are you eating well? Are you drinking enough water? Even going as far as to taking vitamins. Small little micro steps can mean the difference between you feeling good about yourself and feeling less stressed than trying to look at the macro. I always like to say, look at the micro versus the macro, because the multiple micros will get you to that macro, but how many micros can you break that macro down into so it's more digestible, and so it's easier for you? So recognizing, what am I putting in my body? Am I eating, lots of vegetables? Am I eating lots of fresh fruits and that sort of thing to keep my energies up? What is my financial situation looking like? What is my relationship with my partner, with my family, with the people that I'm living with? Am I living alone? Am I lonely? And one of the main pieces, and I think one of the highlights for me, is always, what is my relationship with myself? What kind of stress am I experiencing within myself? A lot of the time we create our own stress because we're so used to anarchy and chaos that when we have that inner peace or that inner stillness, we think something's wrong. So we start running around like, oh my gosh, I have to create a mess or a tornado for myself so it feels normal. So, and that's a form of stress.
I want to dig a little deeper into that, because I do think that some people think that if I'm not stressed, then I'm not working at my highest potential, both at home and on the job. And of course, we talk here a lot about careers, but there is that person who just keeps adding chaos. And so what would you say to them?
To the person who's adding chaos, stop it.
And how do we do that? How do we go, I don't have to be so stressed. It's okay to be calm at work. How would you handle that?
I believe that when we think that we have to be stressed out at our workplace or in any environment that we are subjecting ourselves to, that is a belief that we have instilled in us. That if we're not stressed, we're not doing enough. If we're not stressed, we're not good enough. I think that is all rooted in unworthiness. I feel like that is all rooted in lack. And I don't feel that that serves anyone. So recognizing that is really important.
And I think one of the manifestations is the person who has to look at their calendar and every waking moment is scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you brought some good points about first stop. But then also look at, what's triggering that. And I think you were saying that a feeling that you're not worthy, that you don't have a right to have some free time. Maybe you don't have a right to have fun. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
So for that person, would you say, okay, on this busy schedule in fun? Schedule in something, or, is that a strategy for trying to get that balance?
I do believe that that is a strategy. And for those of you who are listening, those of you who feel that your calendar has to be chock full 24/7, make sure that you're prioritizing some time for yourself, because you are just as worthy and deserving of that time, of that scheduled hour or 15 minutes or whatever it is, as anyone else. And when you decide that you're going to make yourself a priority, you will notice massive shifts, like cartwheels and all types of things. Like, you will notice that the world does a 180 for you because you are making yourself a priority. You are prioritizing yourself and your needs, and that needs to come first and foremost. Everything starts with you.
We're going to take a brief break, and then when we come back, we're going to continue this, exploration of the concept of a mindset in which you are worthy, and talking about all of the benefits of that. So stay with us. We'll be right back and continue our conversation with Rochelle.
All right, you're clear.
Okay. How's this going for you? Is it okay?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this, Lorraine. This is so neat.
This is fun. Well, these conversations, I just love them. They're the highlight of my week, when I can have a great conversation, and in the process give people ideas on how to improve. So when we come back, let's talk about that importance of mindset, because I think you've led into that. And then I will just finish up with a little bit of a talk about the pandemic. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh,
This is so cool.
great time.
Oh,
this is the fun part of a podcast. You get to meet people from all over the world.
yeah.
Sit down.
All right, are you ready?
We are ready.
All right, here we go. Last segment, going to count you in just like last time. In 5, 4, 3.
Welcome back to Career Central and our conversation with Rochelle. Right before the break, we were talking a little bit about how changing your mindset can change your environment and the feedback that you're getting. And that goes back to our decision, when you're in a job, do you try and work on changing yourself, or do you identify it's a toxic situation and you need to get out? Rochelle shared about her toxic situation. We talked a lot about when it is okay to go. But now I want to dig into this job is kind of okay. There's no external threats, but I'm really not happy. So let's talk about changing your mindset. And that is one of Rochelle's many areas of expertise. So Rochelle, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Talk about mindset, how to change it, the impact it has on your work and your life.
Mindset. Yes, mindset is the ultimate seed for everything that a person does. If your mindset is not healthy, your environment will appear to be not healthy. Our external world is a projection of our internal world. So I really like to use this example. If your house is in total chaos and disarray and you can't find things and there's clothes all over the floor and you haven't done a load of laundry in a couple of months, chances are you're probably not feeling so great about yourself. So that is an opportunity for you to sort of reflect, where's my mind at? Is it feeling chaotic? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling scattered and all over the place? Is my inner world, my inner landscape looking like my outer world right now? There's this really wonderful teacher here in Canada. He's known worldwide. His name is Jordan B. Peterson, and he has a foundational principle that is called clean your room. And when you say clean your room, he doesn't just mean your bedroom. He doesn't just mean your house. He means the room inside of your head. If the room inside of your head is full of clutter, is full of chaos, is full of thought patterns and emotions and beliefs and all of these things, how can you make choices from a place of empowerment? How can you make choices from a place of love or from a place of groundedness or from a place of objectivity when you have all of this clutter and all of these curtains in the way? It can make it really, really difficult. So one of the first things that I do with clients is I check in with them. I'm like, okay, how are things going? What is your current state feeling like? What do you want to work on today? And I can usually tell where they are in their mindset just by the way that a person responds. If their arms fly up over their head, I know things are not good. If they kind of sit quietly, I know that they are inward and that they are reflecting rather than arms up outward. Part of developing and mastering your mind is being able to look inward. Lorraine, you mentioned a couple of times, reflection. Reflection is really, really key and really, really vital. When we are able to look in the mirror and go, okay, I'm seeing this is happening. What is going on? Why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Why am I acting this way? That is all an opportunity. I am a big believer in opportunities, and we are provided them every single day. Every single day we are provided a new opportunity. The moment that you woke up, this is an opportunity. The moment you get on a phone, that's an opportunity. The moment you send a message, that's an opportunity. The moment you order your coffee, that's an opportunity. The moment you eat, that's an opportunity. I could go on. There's lots of opportunities throughout the day. And then I feel like a lot of people focus on what they didn't get done in a day. And if you're anything like me, there are sometimes 50, 60, 80, 100 things on my to-do list. And I have to go through and prioritize what is actually needing to be done here and what can wait. I don't need to do 7 loads of laundry today. Is it on my list? Probably, but it doesn't mean that it needs to get done. So making a list, prioritizing, and then assessing what can I actually get done? And then at the end of the day, reflect back on your day, like we're talking about, look back on the mirror of your day, on the movie of your day and say, wow, I accomplished 2 loads out of that 7 loads of laundry. I cleaned my kitchen. I helped my kid with their homework. I made a delicious meal for myself. I managed to get out for a walk. And think about and focus on all of the things you did accomplish. So you're coming from a place of abundance rather than a place of lack.
I love it. End of the day, celebrate what you've done. And in this last year, it's been really challenging because the pandemic has affected us so much. So let's talk a little bit about the effects of the pandemic and maybe having to adjust or work on that mindset so that we stay positive. I think for me, this has been a little bit more of a challenging year to stay positive, and I usually am a pretty positive person. So what advice are you talking about, during the pandemic, and then as some of us are coming out of the pandemic, those stresses and how we recognize those?
I feel like with all of the emotions that are happening all across the world with the current world state, the current state of the world, it's not surprising that a lot of people are feeling emotional or uncertain or fearful about reemerging into life and into society. I just want you to know that it's normal. This is not normal. This world situation is not normal. This is an anomaly for sure. However, it is normal to feel uncertain about reemerging into society, going back out into this great big world. What I would do personally, I'm a big social butterfly, so I do like to practice socializing with people, even at a distance. Like I'll wave to my neighbors and, check in with them and say, hey, how are you doing? Wanted to know how things have been going for you, and just being gentle with yourself as you reemerge. There's a lot of people who have been in their homes since the beginning of this lockdown, and they have lost basic social cue awareness. So having a regular conversation with someone in the grocery store is not a regular conversation in the grocery store anymore. People have lost the subtle cues in basic communications because they have been closed in, shut into their home spaces. So if you're concerned, you can meditate on it, you can pray about it, whatever your belief system is. You can start talking to your family about it. You can contact Lorraine, you can contact myself about it and say, hey, you know what? I'm really struggling with it. I'm really not feeling comfortable with this. And the second you notice that you're in a place of discomfort, that is your opportunity to grow. That is your opportunity.
I think that's great input. And what I really like is it's normal to feel this stress. And the fact that we're kind of coming back together, there are going to be some challenges to communication. Even if a year and a half ago, you had a team, you met together, and then you went virtual and Zooming, and then somehow you're going to come back together. There is going to the comfort with communication is going to change, and I think it's always important for people to know it's normal, that they're not going, oh, there's something wrong with me. It is normal. We ask each of our guests to suggest an action that our listeners can take immediately after the show that will help them start to develop a career advancing strategy. What do you suggest that our listeners do?
Always pause and breathe. First and foremost, pause and breathe before you make any decision, before you jump head first into whatever new adventure you want to go into. Pause and breathe. Check and feel if your body is reacting in a certain way, or if your mind is trying to tell you in the back, like, hey, slow down. Just listen for those subtle cues, pausing and breathing, or just pausing. If you can't even breathe, just get to the point where you can pause. And that's a great action step to take. If you can master pausing, you can master breathing. If you can master pausing and breathing, you can master everything.
Okay. And I think that's great. Again, a simple strategy, but we need to make it a habit. And, maybe that's something that you just do every morning, just to get a feeling how your body feels when you pause and breathe. So that when you're under stress, you can go, oh, I know if I pause and breathe, this is how I'm going to feel. So I get a great strategy, great tip for our listeners, and something you can start right after the show and then just continue it so that it becomes a habit. As soon as you feel right. So as soon as you feel stress, your brain says, okay, time to pause and breathe. And then what I really like is what we talked about earlier, the permission to, take care of it now, or, put it on the shelf for a specific amount of time. I know that our listeners have been really, really engaged in what you've said. So how can our listeners learn more about you, connect with you? I know you have a podcast. I want you to tell everybody all the ways they can listen to you and learn about you and find out more about this whole way of handling stress.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Well, you can reach out to me on my website at RochelleLecourtCoaching.com, and it's Rochelle with an I, RICHELLELECOURT coaching.com. You can reach me on Facebook at Richelle Lecourt. You can find me on Instagram at Madame Lecourt. I'm married to a Frenchman, so that was important. And I am in the process of launching my podcast. It will be live on Friday, April 30th will be launch day, and it is called Chandelier Chats, having illuminating conversations with me. So if you want to check that out, I would be more than happy to receive your feedback and to hear from you and to connect with you all.
Okay. Now I want to ask just an open-ended question. What else would you like to share with our listeners? From your personal experience or your coaching? I mean, like, what is probably the one thing as we move forward in these transitions that you would like people to know?
I would love for people to know that you are not alone and you don't have to go through this alone. I cannot stress that enough. I tried for years to push through everything by myself because I thought I didn't need anybody's help or that nobody could help me. there is always someone who can help you and can lift you up. And that is what we are here to do. We are here to help raise you up. We are not here to tear you down. We are here to help raise you up, bring you up to that next level, and help you get on and moving in a direction of your life that feels good to you.
And I think that's important because over this last year, we have been very isolated, and we have been sort of, um, you know, dealing with the fact I should be able to take care of this myself. I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure out how to get groceries, medications, connect with family. So there has been a lot of that feeling of isolation and frustration. And I think one of the things you said, and I want to kind of build on, is that other people really want to help you. You're feeling isolated. There's other people that feel isolated. And the solution to that is to connect. And I love the fact that you were saying that you're still waving to your neighbors and taking every opportunity to chat. But for those introverts that have kind of, gotten into a smaller and smaller world, what practical steps can they take to start to reach out, to start to connect?
To start to connect again, for those who are very introverted or who are living in the much smaller world. I know a lot of introverts were really excited about
but they're going to have to come out and play again.
Yeah, so you're going to have to eventually come back out. And I would say start small, send a hello to someone someone you're comfortable communicating with and talking with, and say, hey, just wanted to check in. Let me know I'm still here. Wanted to know how you're doing. And that is the smallest, the micro step that I would recommend. Or if you don't really want to connect with people, go outside. Let the sunshine be on your face, or let the rain fall on your skin, and get back to nature.
Yeah. And that's a good point. It's not just reconnecting with people, but it's reconnecting with our environments. Again, I think we've felt maybe very trapped and very closed in. So we're not even looking at the sunshine. We're not even feeling the freedom of walking and all of that. Mm-hmm. That is great. I don't usually tell stories or jokes, but I want to reinforce what Richelle has talked about. There's a classic story in career transition where a job applicant comes in and asks the receptionist, what's it like to work here? And the receptionist says, well, what was it like to work at your last job? And her response is, oh, it's the same way here. Because in other words, what you bring, the attitude that you bring to the job really affects the job that you do. We're not saying stay in a toxic environment. We're just saying that if you go into a job anticipating a positive experience, great relationships, that's what happens. If you go in thinking everybody's going to hate me, they're not going to like me, then that will be what you experience. I think, Rochelle, we both have that when we work with clients, is the way you look at your work, the mindset that you go into your work really comes back to you. And that is, and you have some control over creating your environment. Again, we want to make sure that nobody out there goes, oh, I can fix this. No, you just have some control over your environment. So our guest next week is Zach Ballinger. He has been motivating individuals and audience of all ages, works with high school students, college students, nonprofit organizations, civic groups, corporations, you name it. He is all about helping people find their career. We're going to share, he's doing an amazing podcast series where he is interviewing over 400 different people to find out about their careers. He's building this base and library of careers. And so I'm going to have him share that and some of the other really amazing things he's doing. So we always appreciate your feedback. You can just let me know if you have questions for Zach or anything else by reaching out at careercentralhost@gmail.com. And we always end the show in the same way, saying this is Lorraine Beeman, reminding you to take care of your career because you are the only one qualified to do it.
All right, you're clear. Great job, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you both have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next week.